Here's an expanded version of key point 1 in a reflective, emotionally resonant speaking style, without subheadings and without a concluding sentence. We are living in a time when being noticed has become more important than being known. Many people enter relationships carrying a silent question: how do I make myself desirable? Rather than, how do I reveal who I truly am? And that single shift changes everything. Because when love begins with performance, authenticity becomes a threat. People learn to present the version of themselves they believe will be accepted. The version that appears confident even when they are terrified. The version that appears independent even when they are aching for connection. The version that appears easygoing even when their heart is filled with needs they have never dared to express. Modern love often feels less like a meeting of souls and more like an audition. Everyone is trying to secure a role. Everyone is trying to avoid rejection. Everyone is trying to appear worthy. Yet the more energy we spend managing perception, the less energy remains for genuine intimacy. You cannot truly know someone who is performing, and you cannot truly be loved while you are performing. You can be admired, you can be desired, you can be chosen, but being loved is something entirely different. Being loved requires being seen. Not the polished version, not the strategic version, not the carefully edited version. The real version, the human version, the version that has fears, the version that has contradictions, the version that sometimes struggles to hold itself together. Yet many people have learned that authenticity comes with risk. Some learned it in childhood. They discovered that certain emotions were welcomed while others were rejected. They learned that being agreeable earned approval. They learned that being strong earned attention. They learned that being useful earned affection. Slowly, they stopped asking, who am I? And started asking, who do I need to be in order to be loved? That question follows them into adulthood. It follows them into friendships. It follows them into marriage. It follows them into every intimate relationship. Without realizing it, they become experts at reading what others want, experts at adapting, experts at pleasing, experts at disappearing. The tragedy is that these adaptations often look like maturity. People praise them. People admire them. People depend on them. Yet beneath the surface lies a profound loneliness, because no matter how much love they receive, it never quite reaches them. It cannot reach them. The love is landing on a character they have created, not on the self hidden underneath. And the hidden self waits patiently in the shadows, waiting to be recognized, waiting to be welcomed, waiting to discover whether it is worthy of love without disguise. Modern dating culture intensifies this struggle. We live in an age where image travels faster than truth. A photograph can create attraction in seconds. A carefully crafted message can manufacture chemistry. A curated profile can generate fascination. But none of these things reveal character. None of these things reveal emotional availability. None of these things reveal the capacity to remain present when life becomes difficult. Presence has become rare because presence requires vulnerability. Presence requires us to stop managing impressions. Presence requires us to stop calculating outcomes. Presence requires us to risk disappointment. Many people would rather be admired than exposed. Admiration feels safer. Admiration keeps distance intact. Admiration allows the mask to survive. Exposure asks something much more frightening. Exposure asks us to reveal the parts of ourselves that have never been guaranteed acceptance. The insecure parts, the wounded parts, the uncertain parts, the grieving parts, the parts that still wonder whether they are enough. This is where real intimacy begins, not in perfection, not in attraction, not in compatibility, in truth. Yet truth is increasingly uncomfortable in a culture built around performance. We have become accustomed to highlighting strengths and concealing struggles. We showcase achievements. We hide confusion. We advertise confidence. We conceal fear. We celebrate independence. We deny our longing. The result is a generation surrounded by connection yet starving for closeness. Surrounded by communication yet deprived of understanding. Surrounded by attention yet desperate to feel seen. Many people spend years trying to earn the love they already deserve simply by existing. They become exhausted. Not because relationships are difficult, but because pretending is difficult. Maintaining an image is difficult. Monitoring every word is difficult. Suppressing needs is difficult. Silencing emotions is difficult. Living disconnected from oneself is difficult. The nervous system carries the burden. The body carries the burden. The heart carries the burden. Eventually something begins to break. A person wakes up one day and realizes they are loved by many people yet known by almost no one. They are appreciated for what they provide, desired for what they represent, valued for what they contribute, yet unseen in the places that matter most. That realization can be devastating. It can also be liberating because it exposes a painful truth. Connection cannot grow where authenticity is absent. No amount of attraction can compensate for emotional invisibility. No amount of chemistry can compensate for self-abandonment. No amount of validation can compensate for the loss of one's true voice. The deepest human need is not approval. It is recognition. Not recognition of our achievements, not recognition of our status, not recognition of our appearance, recognition of our humanity. We want someone to look beyond the performance and say, I see you, not the image, not the role, not the mask. You, the person underneath all the adaptations, the person underneath all the defenses, the person underneath all the strategies for survival. When that happens, something extraordinary occurs. The nervous system softens, the body relaxes. The constant vigilance begins to dissolve. For the first time, love no longer feels like something that must be earned. It feels like something that can be received. And for those who have spent a lifetime performing, receiving love can feel far more frightening than chasing it. Because chasing love preserves control. Receiving love requires surrender. It requires allowing another human being to witness what has remained hidden. It requires trusting that authenticity will not lead to abandonment. It requires believing that worthiness exists before achievement, before perfection, before success, before approval, before performance, and many sensitive. People eventually reach a point where they can no longer tolerate relationships built on illusion. The compliments no longer satisfy them. The attention no longer satisfies them. The validation no longer satisfies them. Because something deeper is calling them. A longing not to be admired. A longing not to be desired. A longing not to be chosen. A longing to be encountered exactly as they are. I'll expand the theme. Unhealed wounds create conditional relationships in the same deep, psychologically reflective style. Most people believe they enter relationships seeking love. What they often enter seeking is relief. Relief from loneliness. Relief from self-doubt. Relief from abandonment. Relief from wounds that existed long before the relationship began. And when love becomes a remedy for pain, it quietly stops being love. It becomes dependency wrapped in romantic language. Many relationships begin with a powerful sense of connection. Two people meet and feel seen. They feel understood. They feel chosen. They feel a sense of completeness they have not experienced in years. What they rarely ask is why this feeling is so overwhelming. Why does this person feel like salvation? Why does their attention feel intoxicating? Why does their presence feel necessary? The answer often has less to do with love than people imagine. When an old wound finds temporary comfort, the nervous system mistakes relief for destiny. The abandoned child within us believes they have finally been rescued. The unseen child believes they have finally been recognized. The insecure child believes they have finally become enough. The lonely child believes they have finally come home. For a while, everything feels magical. The relationship appears to heal what years of self-struggle could not. The partner becomes more than a companion. They become medicine. They become validation. They become proof of worth. They become proof of lovability. And this is where offering quietly begins, because no human being can permanently carry that responsibility. No human being can continuously reassure every insecurity. No human being can endlessly compensate for wounds they did not create. No human being can become another person's source of identity without eventually collapsing under the weight. Yet this is precisely what happens in many modern relationships. People unknowingly hand their emotional survival to someone else. Then they call it commitment. They hand over their self-worth. Then they call it devotion. They hand over responsibility for their happiness. Then they call it love. What begins as affection slowly transforms into expectation. Expectation transforms into pressure. Pressure transforms into resentment. Resentment transforms into emotional distance. The relationship starts demanding things it was never designed to provide. A partner becomes responsible for making someone feel secure. Responsible for making someone feel the important. Responsible for making someone feel complete. Responsible for repairing decades of emotional pain. No relationship can survive under those conditions for long, because healing cannot be outsourced. A wound ignored in solitude does not disappear in intimacy. It simply changes location. What was once directed inward becomes directed toward another person. The fear remains. The insecurity remains. The emptiness remains. Only now they have a target. And that target is often the person we claim to love. This is why seemingly small moments create enormous reactions. A delayed text becomes evidence of rejection. A disagreement becomes evidence of abandonment. A boundary becomes evidence of betrayal. A moment of distance becomes evidence that love is disappearing. The reaction is rarely about the present moment. The reaction belongs to an older story, an older wound, an older fear. Something unresolved reaches into the present and demands protection. The PA. Our teener becomes the stand-in for everyone who came before, every person who failed to listen, every person who failed to stay, every person who failed to understand, every person who failed to provide safety. The relationship becomes crowded with ghosts. Two people may sit across from one another, yet neither is fully seeing the other. Each is reacting to memories disguised as reality. Each is fighting battles that began years before they met. Each is asking the other to heal injuries they cannot even name. This is why emotional pain often repeats itself. The wound seeks resolution. It seeks completion. It seeks understanding. So it unconsciously recreates familiar dynamics. A person abandoned in childhood may become attracted to emotionally unavailable partners. A person who never felt worthy may become addicted to earning affection. A person raised in unpredictability may mistake emotional chaos for passion. The wound recognizes what is familiar long before the mind recognizes what is healthy. People often wonder why they keep attracting the same type of partner. The deeper question is why the same wound keeps choosing the same lesson. Because until awareness enters the pattern, repetition feels like fate. The wound continues searching for someone who will finally undo the past, someone who will finally provide what was missing, someone who will finally make everything right. But relationships cannot rewrite childhood. They cannot erase neglect. They cannot erase rejection. They cannot erase abandonment. They cannot erase years of emotional conditioning. They can offer support. They can offer understanding. They can offer companionship. But they cannot perform the healing that only self-awareness can accomplish. Many people spend years waiting for a relationship to heal what only inner work can heal. Years waiting for someone else's love to create self-love. Years waiting for someone else's acceptance to create self-acceptance. Years waiting for someone else's commitment to create inner security. The waiting becomes exhausting, because no matter how much reassurance arrives, it never feels like enough. The wound consumes reassurance faster than reassurance can be provided. Validation temporarily soothes the pain, then the pain returns. Attention temporarily soothes the pain, then the pain returns. Affection temporarily soothes the pain, then the pain returns. The relationship becomes trapped in an endless cycle of emotional hunger. The problem is not that the person lacks love. The problem is that the wound has become larger than what love alone can satisfy. Unhealed pain creates conditions. Conditions that often remain invisible. Love me, but never disappoint me. Stay with me, but never change. Choose me, but never choose yourself over me. Understand me, but never challenge me. Accept me, but constantly reassure me. These conditions are rarely spoken aloud, yet they govern the relationship. IP from beneath the surface, and wherever conditions dominate, fear quietly replaces freedom. Because now love depends on compliance. Love depends on performance. Love depends on emotional management. The relationship becomes less about connection and more about protection. Protection from old wounds, protection from old fears, protection from old grief, protection from old shame. Real intimacy cannot thrive there, because intimacy requires two people willing to take responsibility for their own inner world. Not perfection, not flawless emotional health. Responsibility. The courage to recognize when pain belongs to the present and when it belongs to the past. The courage to examine our reactions before assigning blame. The courage to sit with discomfort without demanding rescue. The courage to acknowledge that not every wound can be healed by another person's embrace. The strongest relationships are not built between two people who never suffer. They are built between two people who refuse to make each other responsible for suffering they have not created. Two people who understand that love is not rehabilitation. Love is not emotional anesthesia. Love is not a substitute for self-awareness. Love is the meeting place where healing individuals choose honesty over illusion, where accountability replaces blame, where understanding replaces projection, where compassion exists without self-abandonment, where two people stop asking each other to save them and begin meeting one another as they truly are. I'll keep the same emotionally intense, introspective speaking style and focus on the theme ***. Sophia Empaths seek depth over attachment. ***. There comes a moment in the life of every Sophia Empath when loneliness stops being the greatest fear. A deeper fear takes its place. The fear of losing oneself. The fear of betraying one's own truth. The fear of spending years inside a relationship while slowly disappearing from within. Many people Assume that sensitive souls are desperate for connection. What they fail to understand is that sensitivity changes when it matures. At first, it seeks belonging. Later, it seeks truth. And once truth becomes more valuable than belonging, an entire way of relating to others begins to change. The Sophia Empath is not impressed by attention. Attention is everywhere. People give attention for countless reasons. Out of attraction, out of curiosity, out of boredom, out of loneliness, out of convenience. Attention is easy. Presence is rare. And after enough life experience, they learn the difference. They learn that someone can talk to them every day and still never truly know them. Someone can desire their body and remain disconnected from their soul. Someone can promise forever while being emotionally absent in the present. Someone can say all the right words and still be unavailable where it matters most. Because depth has never been about words. Depth has never been about intensity. Depth has never been about chemistry. Depth begins where performance ends. It begins when masks become too heavy to carry. It begins when two people stop negotiating impressions and start revealing reality. The Sophia Empath has often spent years observing human behavior, watching what people say, watching what people avoid, watching what people reveal, watching what they conceal. Because sensitivity is not merely emotional. It is perceptive. It notices contradictions. It notices unspoken tension. It notices pain hidden beneath confidence. It notices fear disguised as certainty. It notices loneliness hiding behind popularity. Over time, this awareness creates a profound longing, not for more relationships, not for more admirers, not for more opportunities to connect, for depth, for substance, for something real enough that it does not need constant maintenance, something honest enough that it can survive imperfection. Most attachments are built on fear, fear of being alone, fear of being rejected, fear of being forgotten, fear of not being enough. People cling to one another because separation feels unbearable. They hold tightly because uncertainty feels threatening. They remain connected not because they are thriving, but because they are afraid. Afraid of what they might discover without each other. Afraid of the silence. Afraid of the emptiness. Afraid of themselves. The Sophia Empath eventually recognizes this pattern. And once they recognize it, they can no longer participate in it unconsciously. They begin asking different questions. Not who will stay with me forever, but who can meet me honestly. Not who can make me happy, but who can walk beside me without asking me to betray myself. Not who needs me, but who understands me. These questions transform everything, because attachment is often concerned with possession. Depth is concerned with understanding. Attachment asks, how do I keep this person? Depth asks, how do I know this person? Attachment fears change. Depth welcomes growth. Attachment seeks guarantees. Depth seeks truth. Attachment clings. Depth connects. Many people confuse attachment with love because attachment feels powerful. It creates urgency. It creates obsession. It creates emotional highs and lows. It creates the illusion that something extraordinary is happening. Yet intensity is not always intimacy. Sometimes intensity is simply two wounds colliding. Sometimes obsession is anxiety wearing the mask of romance. Sometimes longing is the nervous system searching for familiarity rather than health. The Sophia Empath learns this lesson through experience, often painful experience, relationships that look perfect from the outside, connections that felt destined, people who seemed irreplaceable, only to discover that intensity alone cannot sustain a relationship. Because what begins in emotional hunger eventually reveals emotional emptiness. The deeper the understanding becomes, the less attractive superficial connection feels. Conversations that revolve around appearances begin to feel exhausting. Interactions based entirely on validation begin to feel hollow. Relationships built upon convenience begin to feel unbearable. Because once a person has tasted genuine depth, imitation becomes difficult to tolerate. They begin craving conversations that reveal inner worlds, conversations that expose hidden fears, hidden dreams, hidden grief, hidden questions. They become fascinated by authenticity, not perfection, authenticity, the courage to speak honestly, the courage to be uncertain, the courage to admit confusion, the courage to reveal vulnerability without turning it into a performance. Many people spend their lives trying to appear extraordinary. The Sophia Empath is searching for someone willing to be real, because reality creates trust, reality creates safety, reality creates connection. CD on, not the illusion of connection, the real thing. A connection capable of surviving disappointment, capable of surviving disagreement, capable of surviving change, capable of surviving truth. This is why many Sophia Empaths walk away from relationships others desperately try to maintain. not because they lack love, because they recognize the absence of depth. They can feel when a relationship is built on dependency rather than understanding. They can feel when affection is being exchanged for emotional security. They can feel when two people are using one another to avoid themselves. And once that awareness arrives, pretending becomes impossible. The cost becomes too great. The cost is authenticity. The cost is peace. The cost is self-respect. The cost is the slow erosion of the soul. Many people fear solitude because they associate it with abandonment. Sophia Empaths often experience solitude differently. They experience it as a return to themselves, a return to clarity, a return to inner truth. This does not mean they enjoy isolation. It means they no longer fear it enough to sacrifice authenticity. They no longer fear being alone more than being disconnected from themselves. That shift changes every relationship they enter. They stop chasing. They stop convincing. They stop proving. They stop shrinking. They stop becoming smaller so others can feel comfortable. They stop editing themselves for acceptance. They stop translating their truth into something more palatable, because they understand something many people spend decades trying to learn. A relationship that requires self-abandonment is not intimacy, it is survival. A relationship that demands silence is not peace, it is suppression. A relationship that requires performance is not connection, it is theater. And eventually the Sophia Empath becomes unwilling to trade inner alignment for external companionship. They would rather sit with temporary low nelliness than permanent self-betrayal, rather face uncertainty than live inside illusion, rather wait for depth than settle for attachment, because deep within them lies a knowing that cannot be silenced, a knowing that the human heart was never designed merely to be attached. It was designed to be understood, to be witnessed, to be encountered, to be met without masks, to be welcomed without conditions, to be known beyond appearances, beyond roles, beyond expectations, beyond fear, beyond need, beyond possession, beyond dependency, beyond the desperate hunger to hold on to what was never truly connected in the first place.